I came first out of 30.
All right.
Hey, folks, I'm Rick Wilson, and welcome to Resolute Square's The Strategy Room. Tonight, we are going to be talking about the breaking news out of Ohio, where there's a very, very consequential election today. We're also going to be talking about Ron DeSantis' very bad, horrible, no good day, Donald Trump's continuing legal perils, and a whole variety of other things to amuse and enlighten y'all. So, with that, I want to jump straight to our friend David Pepper. David, I know you are tight on time right now. And, folks, reminding you, after we wrap up strategy session at 7:30, we're going to roll right into a full briefing with David on issue 1 in Ohio. But right now, folks, you're getting a preview. And David, thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. And I want to thank you very much from all of us for the hard work you've been doing in Ohio to make sure folks are both aware of the consequential nature of issue 1 and to get people moving and organized and to give them a pathway forward. So, David, how does it feel on the ground there? I know we're not ready for numbers yet, but what is your sort of empirical observations of going around today and what you're seeing out of the early counties? Yeah.
I mean, we've all been through this before. Ohio is the topsy-turvy, the way the votes come in. But we had a nice early vote lead. They needed a big surge today, especially in their rural red areas. And so far, and you know these areas, Hamilton County, which is Cincinnati, Summit County, Akron, Cuyahoga are actually ahead right now of Warren County, one of the biggest red counties, Butler County, another big red county. And there's some rural counties that look pretty high, but I also think there's some that are actually quite low. So we're not seeing it. This is all sort of some data here, some anecdotal. If there was a big surge, the kind that pushed Mike DeWine to victory over Rich Cordray when Rich Cordray was leading going to Election Day, it is not clear that they had the surge they needed. And when you look closely at Hamilton County, where there's a significant number of Republican votes, the Democratic areas look like they did better than the Republican areas, even today. So anything can happen, but I certainly feel good that the worst case scenario, which was either the Democrats didn't show up because they all voted early, or that Republicans had some big surge in rural Ohio, neither of those things seem to happen today.
David, do you know what the hard count vote is that they going in that they need to overcome?
I don't know exactly.
I can't remember.
I don't know exactly. I mean, it's such a topsy-turvy thing with this special. I don't think anyone really had a sense of what the turnout would be today.
Yeah.
And it is looking like it's going to, believe it or not, come in. Now, this was a low turnout year, and I was on the ballot, unfortunately. It was a painful experience. This is almost the same turnout as when Kasich got reelected in 2014 on an August 8th election. And our hope is that the majority of that is obviously Democrats showing up. But if their goal, Frank LaRose, this horrific Secretary of State we had, initially said we'd have a turnout of 8%. It's closing in on the high 30s. So we'll see where the numbers shake out. But this is truly uncharted territory because of an election when it wasn't supposed to happen, when the law said it shouldn't happen, but they needed it to try and get ahead of this November referendum.
I did see Tom Bonnier put out an analysis of who had voted and said that it was strong women, many more women than men that had already voted in terms of what was registering on the voter file. So that hopefully kept sustaining. Yeah,
I mean the question is, did we do it all early and then we had nothing left, or did we have a lot more left? And if you look at the votes today in Cuyahoga and Hamilton, I think Franklin, Summit, we got a lot of votes in these blue counties today, and they're not coming from in Hamilton County where I live. If it was a big Republican vote today, it would have all been coming on the west side. That's not where it came from today. They were actually a little lower. It was the east side, the place where Greg Landsman beat Steve Shabbat to flip that seat. That's where the votes seem to be stronger today, which is another. We don't all overread. I try these days to not get enthusiastic, because you never know, especially in Ohio. But the overall trends look pretty good. I'd rather be us than them with 23 minutes left of voting.
Right, and as you guys were seeing this, what was the pro-democracy side in this? How much early vote push did they do on this? I didn't seem to see as much on the Republican side of this in terms of trying to get an early vote turned out. It just did. I mean, I kept looking for for examples of it, it didn't seem like they had a programmatic approach to it. They seemed like it was just sort of, they were taken for granted they were going to turn out today.
Yeah, I mean, they did more of it than I've seen before. I mean, now that Trump's not out there, they're not dissing it. The smart ones know. But I
Right.
still don't think they've got it down like we do. I mean, I was at polls, some polls where we're out there, they're not out there. I think that my hope is we didn't just win in terms of the party score with early vote, which we did. Was it a big chunk of non-regular voters who showed up, as well as a lot, in Ohio, you don't register as a party. You literally vote in the primary. And so we have a whole lot of non-affiliated voters that also showed up early. And my hope is that's also a lot of our voters who were just really turned off by this thing. So they knew coming into today they'd have to have a big turnout. Now, there is a pretty big turnout. But what would scare me is if I was seeing low 40s in all their counties and low 30s in ours, which is how you lose. And frankly, part of what happened last November. That isn't what we're seeing with 22 minutes to go.
Right. And it strikes me that the really important catalyzing force here, obviously, that while this amendment isn't specifically about abortion, the restrictions on abortion that and we're seeing the same thing play out from Kansas. I think I'm hearing echoes in Ohio of what happened in Kansas with the incredibly restrictive movement on abortion questions post Dobbs, and what's happening here in Ohio. So, was the messaging on issue one about the broader democracy message, or was it wrapped together with the choice message?
It was both. I mean, the yes side couldn't figure out what to say because they knew the way to motivate their people was abortion, but that also that's a 60-40 issue the other way, and that motivated us. So they sort of would hide it and then punch it through. On our side, it was always sort of a double whammy. One, a very clear abortion message. Number two, there was a broader punch about corrupt politicians trying to rig the game so that they stay in power, no accountability, that also always did well in testing and everything else. And both those happen to be 100% what they've been doing. So you would have seen in the last week two different ads, one very direct on abortion access with Frank LaRose admitting that was about what it was about. This guy doesn't understand that you're tracked in the year 2023, so he's out talking about it, thinking no one's listening. And then the other one is basically saying to Ohioans that I think would cross over party lines here, don't give away your power to crooked lobbyists and special interests, and that's what this is. And my hope is we'll see a little bit of a bump in some red areas because of that quite conservative message.
Yeah. Well, David, I know you've got to roll. It's 10 after now. We will see you again in 20 minutes on the backside of this where the issue one briefing begins. And I'm hoping we're going to have some great news.
I hope so, too. I cannot thank all of you, all three of you and others, Lisa and others, you guys. We needed to make this bigger than Ohio. We needed to not let it get kind of past everyone hidden. We need to turn it into what Kansas and Wisconsin were, and with your help, we really did do that. So I really appreciate you lifting us up and marshaling all these pro-democracy forces that are out there looking for wins.
David, later on, if you need some votes, call me. I know some people in Venezuela. We can work this out.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, guys. We'll see you in a little bit. Appreciate all your help. Take care.
Well,
Hearing those counties, I have post-traumatic stress syndrome.
I was just going to say, I think we've all bitten our tongue off on Cuyahoga a time or two in our life.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I do think, I do hope that they've made this. I mean, look, we may end up in a situation where Kansas, Wisconsin, and Ohio end up having a bigger impact in 2024 because of these restrictive abortion bans and because of these successful organizing efforts. I mean, Joe, you know a lot about that sort of thing. It seems like these things, they had to build a good organizing effort in Ohio to do this. And while Ohio is a red state, it almost seems like if we keep these folks together and motivated, you almost might be able to flip some of that energy back over on in the 24.
Yeah, that's why you see it a lot in presidential years. It built states that weren't competitive before because candidates went in and tried to organize, and then if you just keep it going, if you don't, like, a lot of problems parties have is they then, like, okay, we did that for this issue, but let's pull out. But if the activists that in the organization that was built to fight this continues, and I think we're seeing that in other places too, where it just keeps going and growing. And the army out there, the pro-democracy army keeps the fight up. It's going to be it could be a game changer, not just tonight, but going into
Yeah,
2024.
if some voters turn out who wouldn't normally turn out to vote on this for the good guys, there's a much greater propensity that they'll stay voting come November '04.
Yeah, I mean,
You know,
this.
I keep remembering. Remember when the Irish, what was it, 3 years ago, that they had a referendum on abortion, the first national referendum,
Yep.
and all these women Irish women came
Mhm.
from all over the world back to
Right.
Ireland
They
to
could
vote.
all vote. They could all vote even if they'd been living overseas.
Yeah, I thought it was very moving, and just spoke to the power of it that I think is just we're seeing ever since Roe was overturned.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think it's also there is, as David was talking about at the very end, and as we've talked about before in the Kansas case, there's a sense of anti-conservative overreach happening in a lot of these states with a lot of these abortion restrictions, like in Texas and Ohio and Kansas, etc. That sense that it's like they're now unlimited government conservatives and not traditional conservatives. Like there was at least a part of the Republican Party, A, that was pro-choice, and B, that was like, okay, we're not comfortable with this, but the sort of like combination of George Herbert Walker Bush saying, rape, incest, and the life of the mother will always be exceptions, and Bill Clinton saying, yeah, safe, legal, and rare. It's like that. People weren't comfortable with it, but the radical change in direction has upset even a lot of the conservatives who might generically be more pro-life. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah, but I also think in this case too, the other thing that's being highlighted is, raising the bar to 60 to make it impossible for the people to have a voice over, over a minority that has a radical view. I mean, I think that that danger is becoming clearer and clearer. It's not just the national ban kind of stuff that they're talking about. It's now, again, it goes back to changing the rules of democracy to make it
Right.
even tougher for people to actually, the gerrymandering and all the other stuff. But this, I think, puts it in stark contrast. And I hope that it's overcome tonight. And I do think that David may have been right that even in some of those Republican rural, red counties, that argument that the lobbyists are, and the guys who want to stay in
Right.
power are trying to screw you on this. I think that's a message that could really help in 2024 as well.
I think that's right. And I mean, and a 60% threshold on this thing, that's a very
Yeah,
tough ballot initiative to get to. I mean, that's a
I
very, very tough hill.
I've won two ballot initiatives in my career that somehow eked over 60. I mean, almost always the no side has a big advantage to stop
Yes.
people from getting, I mean, usually if you do a poll, when you start out with an argument and you're under 60% on the yes side, you're going to be lucky if you get to 50 because that's the
Oh, yeah.
advantage the no side has. So they knew exactly what they were doing. And, when you look at Kansas and these other states, even those stunning victories were like at 57. So there's a reason they lifted this. The 60 was meant to stop it. And that's why I'm sure the dual message that David talked about was the strongest way to go at it.
Right. Stu?
yeah. What is it in Florida on referendums? I seem to
They've
remember
changed it.
doing one that was. It
It's
was
up to
60, wasn't it?
it's up to 60. It's now like basically it's like 60, but now the legislature can also kill it off if they don't like it. They've changed
Yeah,
it. I was just pondering that. I know they just changed it. Hold on.
Yeah.
Keep talking. I'll
yeah.
let you know.
I remember doing
Well,
one for Charlie Crist that I
speaking of,
felt we had to get 60 on taxes.
yeah, on money,
But
yeah.
Yeah, so
But
right there are different ones on taxes. Yes.
talking about Florida, could we move to
we just have some fun with
favorite
DeSantis. I mean,
subject?
Listen, y'all.
Rick?
I am all here for any kind of dumping on DeSantis right now because I have spent the day on the phone with reporters and lobbyists and activists in Florida, and the knives have come out for this guy in a way that I have rarely seen, and that DeSantis put them through hell in the last two legislative sessions, forcing them to do things like the 6-week abortion ban and his weirdo school stuff, all these things that they didn't want to do while ignoring property insurance, housing prices, transportation, all this other stuff. So I'm hearing from people today in the state Senate and the state House, Republicans, mind you, a lot of who haven't talked to me for years, they're like, we're going to fuck this guy. We're done. Once the blood gets in the water with somebody like DeSantis, who's been a bully and a punk,
yep.
he's going to have a really tough time. But as you guys both know, firing the campaign manager always works,
Yeah.
right? It always turns out.
Yeah.
Who is now?
Who hasn't been fired? Everybody's been fired.
Yeah.
I haven't followed this. Who? Because everybody votes for the campaign manager. Who have they hired to as a replacement been named, or is there still going to
Yes,
third
it's his
person in
current
Al
chief
Qaeda?
of staff.
Right. So it's the guy who pushed all this stuff through in the legislature.
Yeah,
They're all
they
pissed
hired the
they
guy
made
as
him the campaign manager.
and they even in their own press release acknowledge he has no political experience. He's a lawyer who's never been in a single campaign, not once. He's never
But he's
run
running a
anything.
presidential campaign.
Right.
His first campaign of his
Rick,
life is going to be a presidential
this
campaign. It's
is
not as
this
easy as it
the
looks. Trust me.
signal that Casey DeSantis is really running the campaign?
He has been the whole time, and it's hard to fire your campaign manager when you sleep in the same bed with her most nights.
No.
I mean,
But to hire a non-professional like that is sort of to send a signal that we're going to be running this.
yes, that is. They're basically saying we're not going to change. We're going to keep doing what we do. We put in a loyalist who is an absolute loyalist, by the way. And the two guys that he brought in behind, who had already been in the campaign, but now who are more central, a guy named Mark Reichelderfer, who I've known for 30 years. He's a good consultant, but he's a state House, state Senate, Florida guy. He's not a national campaign guy. I don't think he's been to a lot of rodeos nationally. And Ryan Tyson, who is the pollster, who is, again, a very competent Florida pollster, but he is not a guy who has played on the national stage before. And if you're the donor class now looking at DeSantis, you got promised a reboot a month ago. Didn't happen.
Yep.
He's kept going downhill. You got promised a reboot 2 weeks ago. Didn't happen. Now you've got a reboot that only has put in a loyalist who is a DeSantis, a Ron Hottie, a bomb vest fit guy who's excuse me.
Bless you.
Live TV, y'all. So you put in this guy, Untmeyer, who is, again, never been in this world before, never done this work before, never had to sit on the phone with a major donor who gave $1 million and listen to that guy scream at him for an hour. All these things are going to be a complete train wreck. And the giveaway, by the way, that they know they're losing is the chief of staff has been replaced by an acting chief of staff, some guy much further down the ladder in the government office who knows he's not even going to. The guy's not even going to change offices. He's not even going to bother.
This is going to be like the third guy in Al Qaeda.
How did they sustain this?
So why? I ask both you guys something I've puzzled on. Why did DeSantis come out and say that he finally realizes what every fifth grader knew in about a week after the election in 20 who actually is the legal president of the United States. What was the motivation of him doing? Is this a donor-driven thing?
I think he's looking now for any breakthrough. I think he's looking for any kind of breakthrough whatsoever. And he's looking for some way to like get out of this ditch that he's in. And he was uncomfortable answering the question, just like they all are. And he was fumbling the question, but I think it really tells you a lot about how desperate this guy is to try to find any kind of sort of clear air to come up on the rest of the pack with, because he's now slipped into the low double digits, not the not the mid teens. He's in the low teens now and falling. And you've got Christie and Ramaswamy up, like both of them are about to break 10. So as much as I'm hesitant about national polling in a presidential primary, even the polling in Iowa is not reshaping the board for Ron DeSantis right now. It's just he's headed down. Everybody else is headed. There's more noise, but anything he's losing, Christie and Ramaswamy are picking up.
Well, Rick, how much longer can he last with this burn rate? I mean,
so they're $1 million a week in the campaign apparently, and a lot of that is their jet travel because they are addicted to private jet travel and they will not stop. I heard that today from a former campaign official who said Casey likes a private jet and she likes a large private jet. So it's not enough to get her little diamond jet with 4 seats in it. It's got to be like a Citation. It's got to be like a G4 or 5. She's not comfortable with the little people, I suppose. But she has been running this thing, and they are spending an awful lot of money every week. So their campaign burn rate is catastrophic. They're not raising small dollar donations at all. And frankly, now that he's come out and said this about Trump, he's really transgressed.
That's not going to help him raise small dollars.
A real red line with small dollar donors.
Yeah.
And so as you guys know, the major dollar people, once they're stung with a guy like this, it's gone. It's over. We saw it. We've seen it before. Once Jeb started losing 1 or 2 major donors, those guys are herd animals. They were out the door in a hot minute. So it's. I just don't think if you want to predict Ron DeSantis' time of death, we're not quite there yet, but it ain't long from now.
So we got like 4 or 5 minutes left before David's thing starts.
Yeah. Well, guys, we're just going to roll right through this. So in other news, Trump is going to have a hearing on Friday. I don't know about you guys, but I was on NBC this afternoon, and I was still talking about the fact that every one of these candidates will still not say the words. Like Joe Biden is going to be get my vote because Donald Trump is a criminal, and they still just can't.
They won't do it.
No, they won't do that.
To break the spell. So,
no, and I think that's the barrier. That's the line that's got to be held.
Yeah. Because speaking of holding the line, we have a great new podcast at Resolute Square, and it is called The Zero Line with Sarah Ashton Cirillo. Sarah is over in the Ukraine. She has fought in the Ukrainian army. She's now serving in a role over there to promote the Ukrainian army's message in their comms department. She's also got a terrific podcast on Resolute Square called The Zero Line. I hope you will listen to it. It is really about not only the Ukraine war itself, but about the moments we're seeing and the risk we're seeing for the future of democracy if this battle goes the wrong way. And I think we have a promo for that, don't we?
Welcome to The Zero Line, produced by Resolute Square. I'm Sergeant Sarah Ashton Cirillo of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, and every week we'll be bringing you inside Ukraine's war for liberty and liberation against the Russian enemy, while explaining how a victory by us on the battlefield isn't just vital for the Ukrainian people, but for the world as a whole. We will push back against the lies regarding this war for freedom and take you straight to the front lines of the fight for democracy.
It is part of the great family of podcasts here at Resolute Square, y'all. We've got Joe Trippy's The Trippy Show. We've got my show, The Enemies List. We've got Burn the Boats with Ken Harbaugh and Dan Barkoff. Yep. And folks, it's a growing family of podcasts. I had somebody reach out to me today wanting to bring their podcast to Resolute Square because they're like, this is a really great group of pro-democracy people. And so the brand is of pro-democracy is strong with us. We hope you'll continue to support us and join us. Listen in, like, subscribe, do all those things. Share this show link with your friends next week. We're going to send it out, make sure everybody knows we're coming again. The social media footprint is really what grows a show like this and really what helps us expand the message of Resolute. We appreciate each and every one of you for watching. We look forward to talking to you again soon. In a very few minutes, we're going to jump right over and get some news out of Ohio from David Pepper. And we're going to know a little bit about the fight for democracy inside the U.S. and whether or not the autocratic folks who wanted to make elections ballot initiatives nearly impossible have been defeated. Looking forward to that news. And we will talk to you guys again very soon. But I'm just going to spin for another minute here and keep talking. One other thing that a friend of mine sent me this afternoon, I thought you guys would, anybody who saw Barbie said, in other DeSantis news, Casey has been demoted to long-term, long-distance, low-commitment, casual girlfriend. So that's a Barbie joke for those of you who've seen it. But anyway, thank you so much, everybody. We're going to jump right now over to the next program, which is a first time we've done this on Resolute Square, where we've done a toss to another program. So we're growing up. I feel like we've matured as a network, and here we go with David Pepper. Thanks everybody for joining in. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks everybody.
Thanks, guys.